I have a recurring dream. The details change, but the heart remains the same. I am dying. Always dying and never dead though. I have found myself at the mercy of an alien invasion, where a supernova slowly encroaches as I cower in a huddle waiting for my turn to meet the flames. A climate catastrophe that has me scrambling for a scrap of land as a cold blue rushes towards me. A frivolous war where a foolish move on my part earns me a knife in my gut, and as I lie dying in pain, I call out for my mum. A supernatural monstrosity that rips at me in my childhood school as my consciousness floats just outside. A stiff pain in one side of my body and a building pressure that erupts in a miasma of relief and death. This isn't a Gary Jules cover of Mad World, where the dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. They're interesting and fun. There's something to muse over and pick apart and tell people who look on a little shocked and bewildered, but all the more intrigued. But in these dreams, I am always dying, but never dead. I cannot comprehend dead. No matter how close it comes and how much my brain is telling me, look, there, that's you, you're dead. I cannot comprehend it. I will retort, no it's not, I'm right here. And I am right there. Every time I die in a dream, I am standing right beside what is supposed to be me. Oftentimes it doesn't even look like me, but my brain is telling me it is. The story it has crafted for me this night has designated this player me. Dead is impossible to imagine because the only comprehensible comparison is non-existence, and that cannot be known. Dying, however, is always comprehensible and is a very popular diversion. It is enjoyable thinking about how I may face my death. In a dream, I have remarkably little control, where everything is designated by predetermined emotions and experiences, and my subconscious plays it like a high school drama kid who's got their first real directing gig. In a game, I am only limited by the mechanics and intended outcome. This may sound infinitely more limiting than a dream, but I think it narrows the view and gives a simplicity to the exceptional grandiose experience of death. The mind is a mess, and the dreamscape is at best a poor attempt at understanding the unknowable. There are an immeasurable amount of works of art that attempt to contend with and comprehend death and dying. Video games, like they often do, offer the unique opportunity to play an active role in this attempt. The Outer Wilds and Kenshi approach the subject of death and dying from two very different standpoints. One gives the player a repeated opportunity to live a poetic fantasy of how to face one's death, and the other desperately has you fighting to avoid death and never knowing what form it may take this time. In the Outer Wilds, there is always 22 minutes ago, an opportunity to learn from past or future mistakes and right the wrongs or commit them over again in a subtly varying pattern. Kenshi, not by the game's hand, but by the community's, enforces a purist's playthrough and forbids save scumming. What failures are committed must be committed to more than memory. They must forever remain embedded in the coded playthrough. In Kenshi, whether played right or wrong, you will confront death over and over and be all the wiser for it, if a little underwhelmed. I think this is the reason for the puritanical view that Kenshi must be played without any pretense or attempt at a redo, because death will often underwhelm. You may be galled by a dog as you clamber across the ground after having lost your leg to a fight some weeks before. There is no glamour, and you certainly had a grander plan for this character. You may be tempted to load a save and try again, but you will lose something in that action. You will lose the frankness. You must embrace that your time, though poorly spent hunched at a screen living vicariously through a character who is significantly worse off than you, is not a guarantee that it will end satisfactorily. Kenshi implores you to learn from failure and accept what is often inevitable, that death is not glamorous and will more often than not be spent huddled unconscious on the ground, slowly bleeding out from a wound inflicted by some unknown and uninteresting vermin. Kenshi even touches on that specific quality of lingering after your supposed death in your dream. When you die in Kenshi, it does not fade to black. You, the player, are left behind with nothing to do. All your characters are dead, if you even had more than one. You can't even stray too far from the body. You are not a spectre capable of traversing this world now unencumbered. You are you, and the only reason you were here was because of them, who are now dead, and so you have nothing left. But we will not end your time here, the game says. That is up to you. You must choose to wake up. The Outer Wilds gives a very different account of death. It confronts death with a dream and wonder-like curiosity that is, of course, offset by the fact that you are not going to die. You will reawaken and be given a chance to explore and understand the reasons behind your demise. But in particular, it does something Kenshi, by its design, does not. The Outer Wilds, above all else, gives you an opportunity to choose how to die. Every dream, nightmare, or fantasy where you are presented with your death can be lived over and over again in a repeating deluge of perfectly constructed macabre fantasy. Ultimately, the game is about discovery and facing the inevitable with an intense curiosity that has you brave the supernova with a singular drive to understand it. Not even conquer it. Never did I get the impression that I was solely there trying to stop it. First and foremost, I was there to understand it. However, I am perhaps not the best candidate for this, for when I was presented with the seemingly unanswerable questions, I was not imbued with an intense desire to understand this unknown variable, to scientifically quantify and calculate to the minutest degree its permutations and outcomes. I was frustrated and annoyed that I was not given special permissions to understand the esotericism of this complicated and seemingly infinitely variable galaxy. Therefore, it wasn't the grand mystery and investigation that drove me to the greatest distance to finish this game, but the recurring possibility to face my death in a multitude of ways. In 22 minutes, I would be dead. Where did I want it to happen? What did I want to be doing? Carrying for my life? Desperately trying to uncover one more mystery? Staring directly into the blinding abyss that would be my beauteous end? I could face it again and again and fantasize a different emotion each time. It gives me a cold, isolating sensation, quickly warmed by the encroaching supernova. On the one hand, we have the unforgiving reality of a pitiable death, and the other, a dreamlike commitment to the dying fantasy. However, both share a commonality that permeates through any interpretation of death and dying. If you step back just a pace or two, it all lessens.